were found. 6 of the hostage bodies were found, and they're dead. And it's a tricky situation because I haven't even looked into it that much, but I suspect that people are going to say, like, Israel is obviously on fire over it. But there's massive protests happening in Tel Aviv where they're like, dude, what the fuck are you doing? Get the ceasefire done, you piece of shit. Okay. Tens of thousands of Israelis demonstrated tonight in Tel Aviv protesting the Netanyahu government steps that delay the Gaza hostage deal. So yeah. One of the hostages has video blaming Bibi and the Israeli occupying force. Yeah. Like, shit is completely out of control. Israeli workers will go on a major strike tomorrow. We're going to be talking about that. It's like, if the politicians don't do the job, the people will. You know what I mean? One of the hostages that was found was the son of that hostage family that talked to the DNC. Yeah, I know. It's crazy that, like, obviously Israelis, like Israeli society, by and large, is blaming Benjamin Netanyahu, it seems, or at least like the people that are protesting are blaming Benjamin Netanyahu for refusing to fucking come to terms. Okay? And Bibi is like spiraling out of control. He might do some fucking crazy shit as a last-ditch effort. So it's definitely a situation that we're going to be keeping a close eye on. We'll start off with that today. Hersh Goldberg, who was rescued, said the following when he was alive. Benjamin Netanyahu and his government should be ashamed of yourselves, because the Air Force bombings killed about 70 detainees like me, because all the deals that were offered to you that were rejected. Obviously, this is like, this could be easily coerced as well. But it does correspond to like what a lot of the hostages have said, including Noah Argani, who literally, he was under duress and it was coerced for sure. But like, you have to remember something, okay? Hostages that are no longer fucking coerced and under duress have said similar things in terms of like, how the fuck have you not done a hostage deal? Or we were more afraid of the Israeli bombings than we were of like our captors in general. So that is something that like has consistently been a through line for all of the fucking hostages that have been released, okay, that are like alive and in Israel. So I just need you to understand that. In terms of like obviously looking at hostage testimony when they're literally in captivity, of course it's going to be duress. Of course there is going to be a level of coercion going on, but you need to understand, like, if this cut entirely against like what hostages that have been freed are saying, that would be a different circumstance. But hostages that have been fucking freed have said the exact same shit, and they have no reason to defend the people who held them captive at goddamn gunpoint. Okay? Like, and also the families of the hostages have been treated as, straight up in Israel, have been treated as an afterthought or a nuisance. Like people who are spoiling Benjamin Netanyahu's ultimate goal of continuing this fucking genocide. Like, and people who themselves in Israel who want to continue the genocide, you know, because there are plenty of people who do want to continue the genocide, are still like, dog, fucking do the deal first. What the fuck is wrong with you? Okay? Yeah. So obviously we'll be talking about this quite a bit in the upcoming days, considering that it's seemingly coming to like a final like the final moment. I don't know. It feels as though this is a great escalation of tensions in general. Every time there's like new information about any of the hostages that have been killed, obviously it's like the final straw, it seems, but we'll see. You know, they call them terrorists in Nukba unironically. Like, what the fuck is going on? Do you think the Israeli opposition was contacted by the U.S. to spark this end? No, dude. First of all, Israeli and the U.S. is like this, okay? America would not fuck up the bag for Israel because they could have a much easier chance of like making sure that the situation is resolved in an amicable fashion by pushing for a fucking ceasefire. You know what I mean? Like they already have that and they're not even using that. America is literally aligned with Benjamin Netanyahu. America's own guy in the cabinet quit. America's own guy in the cabinet literally fucking quit. They tried to like push and pull in some ways, and they genuinely failed to do so by like, by having their guy Benny Gantz leave the fucking cabinet unceremoniously. So they're doing all the worst shit. Letting Israel do whatever the fuck it wants, letting the Israeli war cabinet and the Israeli government do whatever the fuck it wants is perhaps the worst possible thing you can do. Okay? That's the situation. U.S. officials once again give cover to Netanyahu. Meanwhile, in Israel, everyone is blaming Netanyahu. I know. Once again, the United States of America's response to the situation is in clear contrast of the Israeli public's response to the situation. If you recall, I said this early October. Remember, we post the posters of the kidnapped, the hostages, for a very different propaganda purpose here in the United States of America as opposed to in Israel. It is the Likudniks that were taking down the fucking hostage posters in Israel because the hostage families were like, our people are there, our family members are there, our cherished loved ones are in Gaza. Stop bombing. Get a fucking ceasefire, which the Israeli government was obviously, for the past 11 months, allergic to, right? In America, however, the hostage posters were used as an offensive propaganda to be like, yeah, no, this is why Israel has to keep fucking bombing Gaza, ironically killing fucking the family members. So, of course, that attitude has still remained. That attitude has still remained in Israel in terms of like hostage families and the way that they have been treated by the government, the way that they have made their demands known to the government versus Western media completely outflanking and dick riding the most ridiculous Likudnik party line here in the Western world. It is crazy. This does not mean that those hostage family protesters are actually super woke and anti-Zionist by any measure. I'm not saying that at all. Many of them probably still want the continuation of death and destruction in Gaza, but they also understand that those bombs are falling on their family members. They also understand that Benjamin Netanyahu's reluctance to come to an agreement with a ceasefire proposal and a hostage negotiation is probably killing their family members. So you have to remember that, okay? You have to remember that when we analyze the situation. The attitude in Israel is very different than the attitude in the United States of America due to the closeness that many people feel in terms of like their loved ones being still stuck in Gaza. Okay?
Israeli military says it recovered the bodies of 6 hostages from an underground tunnel in Gaza on Saturday. The IDF has identified all 6 bodies, which include Israeli-American Hersh Goldberg Polin. The Israeli defense...
So Hersh Goldberg Polin is the Israeli-American whose family members spoke at the fucking DNC, okay? His family members, his mom and dad, are the people that spoke at the DNC, if you remember. So this obviously is more personal for a lot of other people.
Defense minister said the hostages were killed just before troops could reach them.
According to the initial assessment at our disposal, they were brutally murdered by Hamas terrorists a short while before we reached them. They were abducted alive on the morning of October 7th by the Hamas terror organization.
Hamas is blaming Israel for the deaths. A Hamas spokesman said the hostages were killed
That's
by
crazy.
Israel's bombing.
Whoa. It's not crazy that Hamas is saying like the bombs obviously killed them. What the fuck are you guys talking about? But it's crazy that they're showing the Hamas statement in Western media. That is wild. Whoa, this is new. Chat, this is in the past 11 months of ongoing genocide, this is one of the first times where I have heard Western mainstream fucking media openly state this is Hamas's position and it is at odds with Israel. That is crazy. I got fucking goosebumps, dude. That is crazy. I've never actually seen any kind of autonomy or sovereignty or any kind of like individual attitude from the side of terrorist barbarians, which is the way that they are depicted usually. That is a wild change of pace.
By the Hamas terror organization.
We got to keep pushing. It's the only way we will see any change, and you are part of this too, man. I know.
Is blaming Israel for the deaths. A Hamas spokesman said the hostages were killed by Israel's bombing of Gaza without giving specifics. Now, a group representing the families of Israeli hostages is calling for Prime Minister Netanyahu to address the nation and, quote, take responsibility for abandoning the hostages. Netanyahu released a taped statement this morning blaming Hamas for the murders of the hostages and accused them of not wanting a ceasefire deal. CNN's Nick Robertson joining us now live from Jerusalem with more. Nick, you're also learning some information about these hostages, that some of them were actually slated for release before their bodies were found.
Yeah, Hersh Goldberg Polin and Aidan Yerushalmi and...
As an Israeli, I've had zero hope, but this general strike is the genuine end of this genocide. The strike is total and inevitable. What's interesting about the general strike is that there's a couple different things. So Israel, and I'm sure the Israelis in the chat know this already, but Israel's economy is in the shitter, right? It is fucking screaming bloody murder. That's number one. Number two, Israeli interior security is at an all-time low as a direct consequence of the offensive campaign that they're not only conducting in Gaza, but the offensive campaign that they're conducting in the West Bank. So they don't even have enough, in my opinion, and I don't know how they will be able to deal with this, but they don't have enough fucking, like, they don't have adequate coverage if there is a massive, massive general strike that occurs in Israel. So, like, they won't even be able to fucking bust out the APCs and shit that they've used in the Supreme Court protest that happened. In the Supreme Court protest that happened a couple years prior. So, like, it's gotten to a point where it does genuinely feel like a change might occur. Like, it does genuinely feel like a change might happen. Yeah, money is dried up. Israeli startups are folding one after another. You know, there is the Israeli economy was downgraded again a month ago. And not only that, but also you got one port that is completely bankrupt. You have the embargo from Turkey that has like actually shut off some consumer goods to Israel. Like, these are genuine changes that are happening in Israeli society that otherwise has been used to these comforts that you get from being the vassal state, the unsinkable aircraft carrier of the United States of America. Like, it is by definition a part of the imperial core, right? Like, the way that people have designed their lives, the way that people are accustomed to certain things will create a genuine point of pressure, right? And I think that pressure is going to keep mounting, and we will see. Did you see this going on almost a whole year? Yes, I did. I looking at once the bear hug happened, I was like, this is going to continue for as long as Benjamin Netanyahu wishes it. If anything, I'm shocked that there's this much protest happening against the Netanyahu government right now. It's been an entire year of this bloodshed. It's been an entire year of this fucking death and destruction. And in that time frame, Benjamin Netanyahu's popularity went from deeply unpopular to actually solidly popular once again. So that's something that you need to pay attention to. I'm an Israeli chatter, but don't know where to send the vids and protests and shit. Also, hi. Israeli chatter here. I don't know where to post protest vids today or tomorrow. People are gearing up here really hard in Tel Aviv and Jerusalem, so it's going to be huge. Also, hi. Yeah. I have, alongside many others, like Ilan Pape, who is obviously much smarter than myself, made that same sentiment before, that like the contradictions are becoming far too glaring. Contradictions are becoming far too glaring for this Zionist regime to continue its apartheid, to continue its genocide, and that it will inevitably be the end. It might take many, many years. It might take decades. It might take fucking weeks. But Israel's own actions, its own vendetta, its own bloodshed that it has caused has not only made it internationally a pariah state, but there is a cost to this. There's a cost that you incur when you engage on this sort of endeavor. Okay? And the smaller you are as a nation, the more reliant you are to outside help as a nation, the shorter time frame you have to continue waging war like this. Okay? That's why I've said, like, something legitimately shifted in both the societal attitudes in Israel after October 7, but I think it basically kickstarted the inevitable downfall of Zionism and more importantly, of course, the apartheid that Israel will now try to redirect back to try and defend itself. It was already a pariah state before the genocide. The difference is that Americans are starting to see that way too. No, that's a huge difference though. Like the Western world as a whole recognizing Israel for what it is entirely different, because when Western populations start recognizing Israel as a pariah state, because the globe had already seen what Israel was doing, because they had experienced what Israel is doing in different ways throughout their own historical development. But I'm talking about the Western core, the core countries, the NATO nations, the nations within the European Union, like the Western European nations. Like once their populations started recognizing this, okay, and this has been happening since 2021, I would say, but especially in the last 10 months, once they started recognizing what the fuck was going on, that creates another pressure point internally in their domestic affairs for a lot of these countries. If the broad majorities of your public recognize that this is completely indecent, this is untenable, and yet you are still portraying a completely false narrative inside of your bubble, that puts you at odds with popular mobilization on the ground. And that is a genuine issue, because this isn't Saudi Arabia. This isn't fucking Jordan, right? You can't apply that level of restriction upon your population. And you notice that even in the Abraham Accords nations, what their response has been post October 7 is still very managed. Why is it very managed, despite the fact that they still want weapons contracts from America and they still want to do trade with Israel? Because even they recognize, despite the fact that they obviously have a shit ton more restrictive attitudes at their disposal, that their public is absolutely at odds with the way that they want to continue their foreign policy. You know? This may sound dumb, but I realized Israel was fucked up when I saw World War Z for the first time. That seems insane. You know, this counts as a big deal if the U.S. media is covering it and sharing Hamas statements, as you said. That's the barometer for big deal if it catches U.S. media cycle. Exactly. For all of the talk that always occurs around nothing ever happens, things are always happening. It's just that nothing ever happens is a very Western chauvinist attitude, right? This is something that I have talked about quite a bit. There's this meme, for those of you who don't know, online, of nothing ever happens, okay? The end of history. I think it was Francis Fukuyama who originally said, like, it's over, it's done. Post-Cold War, end of history. History will never, the trajectory of our lives is never going to dramatically change. Now, of course, obviously, things are happening all the fucking time. It's just that in the West, nothing ever happens means nothing happens to me. Okay? Nothing ever happens to me. Things are not disrupted in my life, right? That's what that means. That's what the nothing ever happens crowd is actually saying. And this, or at least this, CNN referring to Hamas statements being at odds with the Israeli government is a change in trajectory. It's a change in the way that American media is covering this issue. That's something happening. That's something happening that even the nothing ever happens crowd recognizes. Okay? So this is a big fucking deal. Okay? This is a big fucking deal. Zionism will be hard to overcome in Germany. We're not talking about Germany. Germany is in an entirely different fucking world of its own. I don't even want to get into Germany. I'm disgusted with everything that I've seen. I saw an anti-Semitism report from Germany on TikTok where the TikToker went through like each individual incidents that were considered anti-Semitic, and it was so disgusting, dude. It was so disgusting. There's like fucking people attacking a synagogue, which is a real anti-Semitic crime, right? Listed alongside with the same level of severity as someone getting together at a gathering and saying the International Court of Justice's own position, like reiterating the position that Israel is currently occupying Palestinian territory and it must immediately stop its occupation. That was considered an anti-Semitic incident mentioned alongside like fucking attacking a synagogue. So you're putting neo-Nazis and in often instances protests led by German Jews in the same fucking category. You are out of your goddamn mind, okay? You're out of your fucking mind. I don't even want to talk about Germany. I don't want to even think about Germany. Germany, I'm done with it, okay? I'm fucking done with Germany. Ridiculous. Yeah. Germany can't even fucking on accident be on the right side of history. It's ridiculous.
Kamal Gat were all slated to be released in the first phase under sort of humanitarian.
In recent days, as Israel has been holding intensive negotiations with a mediator in a supreme effort to reach a deal, Hamas is continuing to steadfastly refuse all proposals. Even worse, at the exact same time, it murdered 6 of our hostages. Whoever murders hostages does not want a deal. For our part, we will not relent. The government of Israel is committed, and I am personally committed, to continue striving towards a deal that will return all of our hostages and ensure our security and our...
He's not wrong. He's not wrong. People who murder hostages don't want to do a deal. People who murder the hostage negotiator don't want a deal. It's just that both of those things are happening, and Israel is doing them. So, you know, something to consider when he says, oh, people that fucking murder hostages or people that murder the hostage negotiator, for example, they probably are not invested in a fucking deal, are they? You can't continue this charade, okay? Especially when people literally fucking are like, dude, there was a hostage deal. You're supposed to get it done. You're supposed to get it done. You're supposed to get this fucking hostage deal done. And their family members are on the other side, you know? Like, you guys are saying shooting aid workers or shooting, random Palestinian children, like people that don't give a fuck about that, okay? Israeli society members who don't give a fuck about that still care about their family members, okay? You need to understand that. You need to understand that. People who literally think like, oh, it's not a genocide, it's an offensive campaign that we have to do whatever, are still like, dude, get the deal done. Get the fucking ceasefire done, you piece of shit. My family members are there. My friends are there. Okay? Do you understand? Do you get it? Like, this is very, very important to recognize. Okay? Very important to recognize. Because does Hamas want a deal? Of course Hamas wants a deal. Come on, dude. How many months have we covered this? Of course they want a deal. And the deal has been basically on the fucking table for 10 months. Here, listen to Israeli hostage negotiators. We later found out that Hamas had offered on October 9 or 10 the release of all civilian hostages in exchange for the IDF not entering the Strip, but the government rejected the offer. Okay? The Israeli government spokesman says war will continue even if all hostages are released. This war has to end with the end of Hamas, Eylon Levy told the BBC. Okay? Do you understand? Hamas had already accepted the U.S. deal, by the way. Hamas says it accepts Biden's ceasefire deal without new Israeli conditions. That was a couple days ago. Hamas, there is a deal on the table. America presented it months ago. The United Nations voted for the deal, okay? Everyone wants that deal. The problem is Israel does not want the deal. And it's not even Israeli society. The only people that don't recognize what is going on are people who unfortunately live in the United States of America and are fucking deluded by our media and Anthony Blinken and the administration regularly fucking lying. Okay? That's why for months I've been saying over and over again, there's a deal on the table. Israel is the only one that's spoiling this deal. All the way up until like Israel literally fucking killed the principal negotiator, which even then people looked at and thought, oh, well, he's a Hamas guy, so who gives a shit? You are not above propaganda, okay? You are still incredibly susceptible to propaganda. It is understandably not something that you pay attention to. You don't have this expectation that mainstream media is going to have a set of biased narratives that they go with that completely go against the reality on the fucking ground. Okay? You don't have that expectation, so you rely on mainstream media. It is understandable to rely on mainstream media. I still rely on mainstream media, very much so. But you have to understand that when it comes to American foreign policy, especially in the way that American foreign policy analyzes Israel or currently sees Israel as an incredibly valuable ally that no matter how hard they go, they will still defend. Okay. I don't blame you for reading a CNN article or two and then having a very different reality, like having a false understanding of what's going on, because there is a shit ton of misinformation out there that is presented as like genuine truths, even though it doesn't fucking make any sense whatsoever. Okay? You don't have this expectation that the State Department officials are going to come out and be like, no, it's Hamas ruining the fucking deal. I promise you, right? And then have that be the exact opposite of reality. Why the fuck would you ever expect that? These are people in positions of power, and there's an expectation that they're going to be truthful. They're not. They're just simply not. And Israel is doing everything it can in its fucking power to basically show you that that's not the reality, that they are the spoilers. Listen to Benjamin Netanyahu. He regularly says, yeah, no deal, no deal, no deal. We're not fucking pulling the troops out of the Philadelphia corridor. No deal. We're going to add new conditions onto the fucking pre-existing hostage negotiation in an effort to fucking keep the hostage negotiation out there, dangle it like a fucking carrot, and continue pummeling Gaza as they have. And America plays along with it. Okay? Look at this reality from the Times of Israel. Hostage families say hostages would still be alive if it weren't for the saboteurs, the excuses, and the spin. On CNN, Blinken says Israel has agreed to U.S. proposal to close remaining gaps on ceasefire deal and calls on Hamas to do the same.